In 1986, a provision buried inside a 900-page tax bill quietly exempted certain trusts from every future estate tax, and the banks that helped write it have never once said a word about it publicly. That exemption is still active today. The families who knew about it in time have moved hundreds of billions of dollars across generations without paying a single dollar in inheritance tax. You were never supposed to find out about it. The story starts in Washington in the summer of 1986. Congress was overhauling the entire American tax code, the largest reform in decades. The Tax Reform Act. Thousands of pages, hundreds of provisions, designed, they said, to close loopholes and make the system fairer for everyone. And on the surface, it looked like it did. But buried inside the legislation, inside the dense technical language of the new generation skipping transfer rules, was a clause that almost no one outside of private banking understood. A grandfather provision. Most Americans had never heard the term. Most Americans still haven't. Here is what it did. Before 1986, wealthy families had discovered something that quietly alarmed government tax attorneys. They were creating trusts for their grandchildren, skipping a generation entirely so that when the money passed, it bypassed one complete round of estate taxation. Congress tried to close it. They introduced a brand new tax, the generation-skipping transfer tax, specifically designed to stop that kind of transfer. But there was a catch. Any trust already in existence, any trust established before September 25, 1985, was permanently exempted. Permanently. Forever. The families who moved in time, who had the right attorneys and the right relationships inside private banking departments, got their trusts structured before the deadline. Every dollar inside those trusts has been growing, compounding, passing from parents to children to grandchildren, untouched by estate tax, every year since 1986. Every single year. The official explanation sounds reasonable. When you change a law, you don't retroactively punish people who followed the old one. Grandfathering is standard. That is fair. Except that is not the whole story, because the banks knew the deadline was coming. Private wealth management departments at the largest financial institutions in the country were contacting their highest net worth clients months before the bill passed, months before the window closed. A 1989 report from one northeastern state's Attorney General office acknowledged that the deadline provision had been shaped, in part, through direct lobbying from the trust and estate divisions of major financial institutions, institutions that understood precisely what the cutoff date would mean for their clients. The families without the right banker, without the right attorney, missed it entirely. The window closed. It has never reopened. Now here is the part that should stop you cold. At the same time Congress was writing the 1986 reform, something was quietly happening at the state level that most legal scholars didn't notice until it was too late. South Dakota had abolished its rule against perpetuities 3 years earlier. Delaware followed shortly after. Then Alaska. Then Nevada. What does that mean? It means that a trust established in those states could last forever. Not for a generation, not for a century. Forever. No termination date. No mandatory payout. The trust simply continues, holding assets, compounding, passing from heir to heir with no end date and no estate tax due at any transfer. The combination of those two facts, the federal grandfather exemption and the state-level perpetual trust laws, created something that had never existed in American legal history. A structure that can hold wealth across unlimited generations, shielded from estate taxes, for as long as the country itself exists. By 2010, researchers at Boston College estimated that between $41 and $59 trillion would transfer between American generations over the following 2 decades. Trillions of those dollars sit inside dynasty trusts right now. The IRS knows. Congress knows. The Treasury Department has published reports acknowledging the structure. In 38 years, they have not closed it. Ask yourself who benefits from that silence. The banks that administer trust accounts collect annual fees, sometimes a fraction of a percent of assets under management. On a billion-dollar dynasty trust, that is still millions of dollars in fee income every single year. Generation after generation. Forever. The attorneys who structure these arrangements are among the highest compensated in the country. The states that host them attract enormous capital pools and the economic activity that flows around them. Everyone in the arrangement has a direct financial reason for it to stay exactly as it is, and none of them are calling their representatives to demand it change. The wealth compounds in private. These trusts file no public disclosures. Beneficiaries are not required to reveal where their distributions came from. You cannot find a list of these trusts. The federal government does not publish one. There isn't one. So here is what you are left with. The provision was written in 1986. The deadline passed. The window closed. And in the decades since, the people who knew have gotten extraordinarily careful about making sure the people who didn't never do. Who told your family?